Hello and welcome to Friends Life Care's Vigor webinar, Using Mindfulness to Thrive. My name is Katie Starantino. I am the Acting Director of Wellness Initiatives, and I'll be your host for today's webinar. Before we get started, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items. The link to today's handouts will come to you in an email after today's presentation. While there's no chat feature for today's presentation, you can submit questions by clicking the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. If you don't see the Q&A feature on your computer, you can run your cursor over the bottom of the screen and you'll see it. So now I would like to introduce Cindy Flores. Cindy Flores is a licensed professional counselor who created Unique Journey, LLC, as a therapeutic practice that emphasizes the importance of holistic focus to wellness. In 2011, Cindy was trained in mindfulness-based stress reduction at Jefferson's Myrna Bind Center for Integrative Medicine. Cindy is the Director of Counseling at Villa Maria Academy and an adjunct professor at Immaculata University, where she teaches mindfulness to graduate students. She also facilitates MBSR classes, mindfulness retreats, and stress reduction workshops in Chester County and neighboring counties. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you so much, Katie. It's great to be here. It's great to be able to talk about mindfulness with a group of like-minded people. And so I am not sure who is on this webinar at this time. I would like to start with our first poll, just so I can see a range of your experience with mindfulness. So if you would be kind enough when the poll comes up to respond to the most appropriate response.
All right, we have some responses coming in.
Okay, well, that's very helpful. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and I'm going to wait a little. We have a few more still coming in here.
Okay.
It looks like, Cindy, the majority of people, 55%, know about mindfulness but do not practice it.
Okay. Well, and that informs me because I always try to teach mindfulness on a level where someone who knows very little about it doesn't get lost, but somebody who has a daily practice doesn't get bored. So that's my hope, is that I can give that range so that everybody walks away with something special today. The reason that I started this webinar was because we've been through a very stressful time the last 16 months. I don't think anybody would argue that this has been a unique and very stressful time. And it occurred to me as I heard people's reflections as a therapist, I heard people's reflections on COVID, and I thought, you know, this could be an opportunity for us to reflect on thriving versus being just grateful that we survived it. So that's how this came about to be, because for me, a lot of us are we're just grateful that we got through it. And I know it's not completely over. I know there's still concerns, but we got through the lockdown and some of those things. And I know we had tons of exposure, you know, from friends, family, media. We've heard all kinds of things. And so we have been draped in a global response to something that we've never experienced before in our lifetime. So Katie, if you could put the first slide up, I would like to just touch in on this. And I realize that the slide to the right, the words may be a little fuzzy or blurry, and I apologize for that, but I will let you know what they are. We will be addressing that. So if you cannot read them, we will go over that. But I wanted to start with a quote that is attributed to Albert Einstein. And that is, everything is energy, and that's all there is to it. Match the frequency of the reality you want, and you cannot help but get that reality. It can be no other way. This is not philosophy, this is physics. The reason I wanted to start with that is because that can be a very empowering statement, is that if everything is energy and we have the power to align with the energy we want, then we will match that energy. However, that can be very difficult, especially in a stressful time, because sometimes the energy we're matching with is very what we call slow vibrational energy. And that is what the spiral on the right is actually showing. Again, I'm sorry some of those words are fuzzy, but I will explain what the spiral is showing. And I think it's a good visual just for you moving forward to envision this as you ask yourself, where am I on the spiral? So the gray line, the gray bar that splits it in half, actually says boredom. So neutrality is when we are bored. We're not really rising up vibrationally, and we're really not sinking. We're just sort of at a standstill. It would be my guess that over the last 16 months, many of us, if we didn't feel it personally, were significantly exposed to some of the qualities that are on the bottom half. These are called the low vibrational energies. And I will let you know what they are going from the bottom up. So the bottom left is powerlessness, followed by insecurity, guilt, jealousy, hatred, rage, anger, worry, doubt, impatience, irritation, frustration, and pessimism. Before we do a mindful exercise, and I talk a little bit more about mindfulness, Katie, can you actually launch the second poll just so I can get a feel for our audience's experience with COVID?
Okay, everyone, the second poll has been launched, so we'd love if you could vote here. And good, yeah, we're getting a lot of answers here.
Okay.
So far, looks like, here we go, a little more. So it looks like the answer to the question, do you feel like you lost something significant or had a setback as the result of the pandemic? 33% said yes, and the rest said no.
Okay. Well, and I appreciate that because, as you're probably very aware, and Katie, if you want to put up that first slide again, actually the second slide. Yes. Some people, we can't discount that some people had major loss. Some people lost loved ones. Some people lost their jobs, their finances. I mean, there's no question that some people had great loss. I'm so glad to hear that that was not your experience. However, you know, we all were kind of immersed in a life shutdown. And so when life shuts down, it's a great opportunity to reflect on where we might want to go in the future. However, mindfulness, the interesting part about mindfulness is about being in the present moment. It's being with what is, paying attention on purpose, non-judgmental. And I think if ever there's been a time where it's difficult to not have judgment about our life experience and the things we're going through, maybe the last 16 months might have been it, outside of any personal crisis that you may have experienced in the past. So I just heard this past Sunday, it was in 2017, Brother David Steindl-Rast, who was a Benedictine monk, I had heard he was interviewed in 2017, and they replayed it, and I'm going to guess they replayed it because his 95th birthday was July 12th. So he's had a lot of life experience. And what he shared was he was in the German army during World War II. And so bombs were literally going off all around him, and that death was very, very possible and very close every day of his life. And so he talked about being in the present moment, that this is where he learned about mindfulness, because knowing that this moment could be his last was truly a reality. And so he said he learned to live with death all around, but that actually gave him the opportunity for gratitude for whatever was going on and for the life he had in that present moment. And ultimately, that's what mindfulness is about. It's about having appreciation for what's going on now. Even if we're in difficult times, we can express gratitude. We can step back and see if there's action we need to take, as compared to getting caught up in the drama. And I thought that was really timely and interesting to hear him say that. So I'd like, Katie, if you could go to the next screen. I used a word that I developed a definite love-hate relationship with over the past year. I don't know if it was a word you heard often, but I heard it daily, and it's running down the left side of your screen. It's pivot. And like I said, it became a love-hate relationship because everyone would say, well, we have to pivot, especially now that once I started in October in an in-person school, every day there was this opportunity to have to pivot because rules changed, opportunities, things like that were changing literally daily. And I found myself starting to use it. And so I embraced it because I couldn't get rid of it. And part of mindfulness is embracing whatever shows up. And this word was a very common word. And so I thought, I'm going to use this as an acronym for today, because there's many ways of approaching mindfulness, especially through the lens of thriving. And I'm going to give you my reflection of what thriving is. I'm going to leave it to you to actually come up with your definition for thriving. But I would say that actually, Katie, I am going to ask you to go back to the other slide, because I didn't talk about the upper part. So my definition of thriving really is being mostly in the upper part of the spiral. And I realize I will read them for you just so you can see what is in the upper part of the spiral. It's positive expectation, contentment, belief, hopefulness, optimism, enthusiasm, happiness, passion, eagerness, love, empowerment, joy, and freedom. Those are the vibrational energies that make us feel buoyant. If you would just think about those, when you're happy and optimistic and enthusiastic, if you just think about how your body feels, it will feel different than when you're in the lower vibrational energies. And let's do a little practice right now. I know a lot of you don't have a daily practice, or maybe know little about mindfulness, but you're going to be able to do this because it's just a reflection of checking in. So I'm going to ask you to close your eyes, or at least divert your eyes down so you're not looking directly at the screen. I'm going to ask you to take a deep breath in so that the belly actually protrudes out, and then take a deep breath out, letting the belly fall back in place. And continue to do that at a rate that's comfortable for you. And I'm going to ask, as you allow yourself to become more in tune with this type of breathing, this is called diaphragmatic breathing. It's a very healthy form of breathing. You don't typically do it on a moment-to-moment basis. But I'm just going to ask you to do this personally. No one's going to ask you your reflection on this. But just notice how your body feels when I say some of the words in the downward spiral. Just notice, because our thoughts can deceive us and fool us, but our body always gives us an accurate reflection. So it might be gentle, but see how your body reacts to these words. Powerlessness, guilt, anger, worry, frustration, pessimism. Just take note of how your body feels in this moment. Now I'm going to say some of the words on the upper part of the spiral. And I ask you to check in with how you feel when you hear these words and when you match with these vibrations. Contentment, optimism, passion, love, freedom, joy. Just see if there is a difference in your body. And if you have had a daily practice, this might be easier than for those of you who don't do this on a daily basis. But just notice any gentle, maybe there was a little bit of a tightness in your chest or a knot in your stomach. That's what often people will reflect on, the downward spiral words. Maybe you noticed a little bit more of the shoulders coming up and a lightness with the upward spiral words. Okay, thank you, Katie, for sharing that. You may open your eyes. And Katie, if you'll go back to the second slide, I appreciate that. So what you experienced, even if you weren't experiencing those attitudes in the moment, just filling your mind with those words actually can change the way you feel physically, emotionally, mentally. Because here's the truth. Our brain doesn't know what is actually happening and what we feed it. It only knows to react. And so the parts of the brain that connect with danger and worry and, we need to, the fight or flight kind of attitude, the part of the brain that lights up then will send out chemicals and reactions to the rest of the body that tell it to contract because the legs need all the blood flow. So they need to run or we need to punch. So all the blood will go to those areas, which often then will contract and constrict other parts of the body. However, that's great if there's a fire and you need to exit quickly. But it doesn't really serve you if you're worrying about something financially. It really constricts the body and it actually shuts off the frontal cortex as part of the brain here, which is responsible for decision-making and problem solving, which is a big part of the brain you want engaged when you're dealing with a real problem before you. And so when we get immersed in the energy of other people or what the media is saying, we can get drawn into that drama without even realizing it. And our bodies can actually start to slow down vibrationally. The problem with slowing down vibrationally is the best example I have is water. If we slow the vibrational energy of water down, it will become ice. It will become solid and sluggish. If we raise the vibrational energy of water, it becomes very expansive, becomes steam. Okay, it doesn't have a solid form. Well, we're made up of a lot of water, but the majority of our body is water. And so when we go into those low vibrational energies, we start to contract our bodies. We can actually welcome in dysfunction or dis-ease. With mindfulness, we can make that choice. We can recognize, whoa, I'm down in those low energies and I need to bring it up. And with mindfulness, we can change our mind and start to reflect on the higher energies, or we can choose to dwell in the lower ones. I mean, some days you might, like me, you might have days where you're really down and out and you just want to kind of sulk for the day. However, it's when you get stuck chronically there, when you get depressed, when you're grieving and it's chronic and you don't have a way out, where it becomes a problem for you mentally, emotionally, or physically. So going back to pivot, I had originally put in, instead of practice, I had patience, because that's one of the tenets of mindfulness. But then I started thinking, you and I, we could sit here all week being as patient as possible and no change will occur. Because without the practice, there won't be change. So I changed the P to practice, and I would like to start with a breathing exercise. And I'm going to credit Dr. Roger Yonka, who is a Qigong master for this. And I'm going to move back now because we're going to put movement with the breathing. We just did a mindful exercise where you did the deep breathing with the belly going out and the belly contracting. I will make one comment that to really activate a very healthy state of mind, the exhale should be just a little slower than the inhale. So when we start the breathing, I'm going to ask you to be aware of that you're going to breathe in deeply and slowly breathe out. But I'm going to move back so that you can actually experience and hopefully see here what I'm doing. I've gotten interested in Qigong. I can't say that I'm nowhere near an expert in this, but I have taught it to the students here at Villa, and I've used it in some of my workshops. And people really find it, like yoga, like Qigong, they find it very helpful when sitting and doing like a guided meditation isn't their thing. Some people don't want to sit and just be still, where they don't want to listen to someone else's voice. They really enjoy movement. And so I'm going to initiate a couple of breathing movements. But what I credit Dr. Yonka to is that he actually put words to the movement, which I had not heard before. So you can do this along with me. So I'm going to ask you to inhale. And then exhale and bring your hands together. Inhale. Bring your hands together. Now, what he said was one hand can be the holder of the past. One hand can represent the holder of the future, because most of our anxiety and worry really exist either in the past or the future. And so if you envision this time that when you turn your hands this way, you're letting all the past and the future worries, concerns, experiences kind of just flow off of your palms. And so when you bring your palms together, you are engaging in the present moment. That's the intention you're holding. So again, bring your hands out and in. Focusing and having the intention of being here now. And just do that 4 more times at your own pace. That's time. If you've been doing this type of movement frequently, you might actually feel the energy between your palms. Just play with that for a second. Go back and forth. And some of you might be sensitive to that non-existent, that energy that exists between our hands that we can't see, but we can feel its vibration, feel its pull, almost like a magnet. And we're going to go into another exercise that he offered that he called the mind body connection. Okay, and this helps us deal with emotions and mental clarity. And so what I'm going to ask you to do is you lower your hands, exhale up, come in, and now pushing out with intention. Exhale, and then come back in. Holding the vision of allowing yourself to no longer be between a rock and a hard place. So envision escaping the rock and the hard place. Exhaling and pushing out one more time. And then exhaling up. Coming back down. Envisioning lifting the weight off your shoulders. So envision that on the next exhale. One last time. Coming back down. Then you're going to turn your hands out and go out in front of you with the vision of, I am open to hearing what you have to say, but I'm setting healthy boundaries. And coming back. Holding this vision now, breathing out. And one last time. And coming back. And the last one is pressing the palms down. With this saying, I am limiting the complexity in life. So pushing down with intention, coming back up. Exhale, limiting the complexity of life. Back up. Last time, big intentional exhale. Bringing you back up. Facing your palms together to remind yourself that you plan to be in this present moment during this webinar. Take one more deep breath in. And out. Now, I'm not going to ask you to respond, but I would like you to take a moment to just see how you are feeling in this moment. If you are feeling a shift in any way, maybe relaxed or lightness, maybe no shift at all. Just be mindful of how you are feeling in your body. Because again, mindfulness, whether you're doing a breathing exercise, a movement meditation, whatever, is about awareness. What is showing up in this moment? So I'd now like to just shift us down to the I, which I've labeled impact, and the V, labeled values. I want to put them both together because as I see, as we emerge from a time of lockdown, of a time of feeling limited, there were so many things we took for granted were taken away temporarily, and now, and hopefully moving forward, will be open to us. This is a time to get very clear on our values. You may have done that. One of the questions I asked all my clients shortly after we went into lockdown and everything had to be through Zoom was, what have you learned about yourself during this period? We lost things that we probably took for granted. Maybe not permanently. And unfortunately, based on the poll, I'm getting the sense that it was more temporary for most of you. It seems like it was a little bit more consistent and serious for the rest of you. But hopefully you can use this time to say, in this present moment, let me consider, what are my values? What, as we move out into the world, do I want to make sure that I am experiencing, mindful of, taking note of? And also, as I go back into the world and I'm interacting with friends and family and beyond, what type of impact would I choose to have in the world as a reset if I wasn't doing it pre-COVID? Something I often hear from clients is, I don't have a big platform. I can't make a big impact. I'd love to make a big impact, but I don't have a vehicle for that. And one of my mindful meditations over the last few weeks, as I was preparing for this, because I'm very visual, the image came up about the virus, the actual COVID virus. And I thought, nothing gets much smaller than a virus. It can't even exist without a living host. And yet it had one of the biggest impacts on the world since I have been alive. And so it made me think that, we don't have to have a huge stage. We don't have to have, a huge network to make an impact. In fact, maybe that's not even our intention, but we can still have an impact, a very mindful impact on those whose lives we touch for a moment, for months, or maybe for years. So I'd like to take and do a guided meditation for a few moments where you reflect on that. And then at the end of that, so just be aware what comes up for you, because at the end of that, I am going to ask you to give some reflection of what you experienced, only at what you feel comfortable sharing, or to ask a question. If a question's coming up for you about mindfulness or that particular exercise, you'll have an opportunity to ask after this. So I ask you to sit in a comfortable position, close your eyes, take a deep breath in, and a slow, deep breath out. And if you haven't asked yourself in the past, now is the time to ask, what values are most important to me in my life? And what natural strengths do I possess that allow me to really engage in those values? For instance, if you're a caring person and you value being there for friends, that might be a connection. So let's just take a moment, few breaths. What do I value? And how do my natural strengths relate to those values? Now I'm going to broaden that with, if I choose to make an impact, how and where can I make a positive impact? Any kind of social engagements, organizations you might belong to. How can I bring my values, my personal strengths that are unique to me? How can I bring them intentionally to make an impact beyond my own personal world? We'll just stay with that for about 30 more seconds. Take one more full breath in. One deep exhale out. Open your eyes. And if you would like to ask a question or give a reflection of what came up for you in that exercise, you can put that in the question and answer so Katie can see that and relay that to me.
Okay, I'm just going to stop the share so we can look at the question and the answers as they come in. So you can just use that box right at the bottom of your screen there. We encourage you to share anything that came up for you. All right, maybe wait another minute or so.
And that's fine if it remains private and personal.
I see some people raising hands, and that's great, but fortunately we're not able to communicate in that way, so please use the question and answer box. I think you might be right, Cindy, that people are just wanting to keep it close with them.
Okay. I see I do see a raised hand, and I'm not sure how, unfortunately, I don't know.
Yeah, we can't with the setup with the webinar, but we did have someone share. She's been affirmed in relationships in her community.
Ah, wonderful. That's wonderful. And that you have that awareness is just so healing. You know, that definitely is a high vibrational energy when you're affirmed. Any other reflection or question that's coming up at this time?
Looks like just that for now.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Now we can go back to the pivot slide, please. And much of mindfulness can be very, personal. Sometimes we need to dwell on it. What I would ask, if we had if we were doing this over like a half a day, I would have you write down and reflect and kind of journal for yourself. And that but we only have a short period of time, but that might be something that you want to expand. You might want to do what we call stream of consciousness writing, which is you just put your pen to paper and you could say, the impact I want to make. And then you don't really concentrate on it. You just let your hand write, and your subconscious mind will often bring clarity as to how you might want to expand that impact or how you're already putting that out there into the universe. We'll now move to the O, which is the open-heartedness. And this is very important in mindfulness because the way we have a growth mindset is to not be always in a sense of judgment. And again, I'm going to go back to the interview that I saw with brother David Steindl-Rast. And he was asked about enemies. He was asked, how do you not have judgment about your enemies? Do you not have enemies? And I've never heard it explained any better than this, so I'm going to borrow this from him. And that is anyone who is in opposition to our values and what we believe is our enemy. However, we do not have to be hostile. We do not have to wish poorly on them or have anger, resentment, all those negative vibrations we talked about in that lower spiral. We do not have to put them out there. In fact, we will have a greater impact if we can just be open. And then if you think about our breathing exercise, being open to listening, but holding healthy boundaries. That is how he encouraged people to engage with people that he labels enemies. I mean, if someone's destroying the rainforest, we won't say they're our friend, but that does not mean we have to hold them in contempt. And so I'd like to take a moment just to introduce you, if you've not already experienced this. This is a very common meditative practice called the metta meditation or loving kindness meditation. And I'm going to take, since we don't have a lot of time, I am going to focus primarily on you experiencing what it would be like to put well-wishings out to those who make your life difficult, who might be in your personal life, who create irritation, who create negativity, or things you're seeing on TV that make you feel like, where are we going as a nation, as a world? This is your opportunity to practice loving kindness. So let's get back in a position that's comfortable for you. Take a deep breath in, and either close your eyes or at least drop them down so you're not looking at the screen directly. Deep breath in, slow breath out. And you can repeat these well-wishings as I do. In your mind's eye, let's start by bringing to mind someone who is easy to love. Might be a small child, could be a pet, could be a best friend, someone who is very easy to love. And I invite you to extend these well wishes to this individual. May you be peaceful and happy. May you be safe from harm. May you be as healthy and strong as you can be. May you live with ease of well-being. Now extend this image further out to include perhaps neighbors, people you come in contact with lightly, perhaps a person on the road that did honk at you or created some irritation in you recently. Expand it far enough out that there's easy people and more difficult people to appreciate in your scope of the image. And I invite you to extend these well wishings. May you be peaceful and happy. May you be safe from harm. May you be as healthy and strong as you can be. May you live with ease of well-being. And then extending it further out to encompass, at this time, the entire globe, entire earth, all the living beings, human, animal, plant life, even include the oceans and the land. Don't forget to include yourself in that vision. And extend these well wishings. May we be peaceful and happy. May we be safe from harm. May we be as healthy and strong as we can be. May we live with ease of well-being. Release the image and go back to the breath. Deep breath in, slow, deep exhale out. Do 2 more full exhales. And open your eyes on that last exhale. The focus for my webinar today is for you to feel empowered to shift your internal world. Whether that was easy or you struggled with this meditation, whether you found resistance in including people who you would call enemies or not, the reality is, if you go back to the quote with Einstein, everything is energy, and we match the vibrational energy where we put our focus. If your focus is on how horrible somebody is, how much you resent them, you're going to drop into those lower energies just by the mere physics of it. If you go into the last letter, the T, the trust, which is the letting go of all that we can let go of that feels negative in our body, we actually have the capability to choose higher vibrational energies. When we hear ourselves say, well, the news made me angry, or he worried me, or upset me, we are handing our power, our energy over to someone or something else. When we notice that, wow, I'm in a worry state, we are empowered to choose differently. Whether we do it through a breathing exercise, a guided meditation, or some other form of mindfulness activity, we can come into the present moment, be aware of how we're thinking and feeling, and we can do a practice that allows us to shift out of a negative situation if we so choose. With the trust, the very last letter of pivot, it really is about letting go. And this can be sometimes the most difficult thing for people, letting go. I'm going to introduce the mountain meditation. If we had more time, we would spend and elongate these meditations so you would have more practice. But quite frankly, since most of you have little to no practice, sometimes short is better. So I'm just offering these up as examples of mindfulness. You can Google mindfulness exercises and everything can be from when you get off of here, it'll be lunchtime. You can have a mindful lunch, which means be really present instead of just, eating in front of the TV or talking with someone and not paying attention. You can be in the present moment of what you are eating and have an appreciation for the fact that you have the food to eat or enjoy how it tastes and that you had a choice to decide what to eat today. So that is also a part of mindfulness. But with the mountain meditation, we'll just take a few moments to do that, and then we'll end with a quote. So I'm going to ask you one last time to sit in a comfortable position. Take a deep breath in. Slow exhale out. And bring to your mind's imagination a mountain. It may be a mountain that you saw in a magazine or that you visited in real life. It could be a mountain of your pure imagination. But just view in your mind's eye this mountain that stands before you. Notice its peak, the lofty sides of the mountain, and the base, very grounded, very rooted to the earth. Now I invite you to bring that vision of the mountain into your body so that your head is the peak of that mountain. Your arms are the sides of the mountain. And your feet are the part of the mountain that is rooted and grounded to the earth. Become a living, breathing mountain. And in the fall, the mountain experiences the changing the weather, the colors of the leaves start to change. The activities of any beings that live on this mountain start to shift and prepare for winter. But even though everything is changing on the surface of the mountain remains mountain. Strong, stable, rooted. And fall becomes winter. Leaves have dropped off the trees. Any water on the mountain has frozen over. Most of the living beings have either left or tucked away for the season. And then there are the winds of winter. Some are gentle winds that might produce light snow. But then there's the fierce winds and the heavy snows of winter. But through it all, mountain remains mountain. Everything on the external surface is shifting and changing. But at the core of mountain, it remains stable and steady. And spring arrives, and things start to bloom, and animals start to become more active, and perhaps people return to the mountain. And the sun is higher up in the sky, so there's warmth, which leads into summer, which even brings more activity, more warmth, longer days. But regardless of which season, mountain remains at its base, at its core, stable, steady, and grounded. Whether it's choosing to judge the seasons as positive or negative, at its core, it remains stable. You are like mountain. You've lived through many seasons. You've had times in your life that are active and buoyant and you wish would never leave. And unfortunately, they'll change over time. But then there's the times that feel slow and lonely and we're in grief. And we wish they wouldn't even show up, but they do. And we have no control over them showing up. But they too will leave if we allow them just to go in the cycle of life. If we stay grounded and we stay stable. So release the image of the mountain in your mind's eye and take a deep breath, knowing with the in-breath that you are as stable and grounded as that mountain. Exhale with the intention of remaining in that state of being. One more breath in and breath out. And open your eyes if you would. Again, a mindful experience that life will bring us things that we don't choose, but we can choose how we respond, how we react, or whether we try to hold on to something, or whether we let go when it has served its purpose. And I'd like to end the webinar with one of my favorite poems. You may have heard it before. It's up on your screen now. It's from Rumi, who is a 16th century poet and philosopher. It's called The Guest House. This being human is a guest house. Every morning a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness, some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all. Even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture, still treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door, laughing, and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. And I will close with this as a reminder that we've been through a tough time. There's no question about it. But if we allow some of the negative experiences we have to move through us, we can learn to grow, keep in the high vibrational energies, and therefore thrive. Thank you for being with Katie and I today, and I'm going to turn it over to Katie.
All right, thank you so much, Cindy. I'm going to encourage everyone to put some questions in if you have any. And we do have a comment, I think, from the last question you were asking, Cindy. Someone said, yes, I had the same wonderful affirmations over these last months. They are so healing and wonderful.
Oh, wonderful.
Someone else just said, laughter is so, so important. And thank you. They thanked you for the presentation.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for being here and giving me the opportunity to do this.
You gave this person a lot to think about here, so some great feedback. I especially loved the loving kindness meditation. I think that's something that I would like to continue practicing. So feel free to keep putting these in the question and answer. I just want to remind everyone that once you leave today's webinar, you will get a 5-question survey. We would greatly appreciate it if you could just take a few moments to provide us your feedback so we can continue to improve and bring more wellness webinars your way. You will also receive a follow-up email tomorrow afternoon with a link to view the recording of today's webinar. You can view it again, you can share it with others, and you can find past recordings of our wellness webinar on the website as well. And finally, I just want to let you all know that we are continuing with our 6-week Tai Chi series. That's Tuesdays at 11. And our next Vigor Wellness webinar is called The Brain and the Ear, a Two-Way Street. And that is held Thursday, August 5th at 11 a.m. So thank you again, Cindy. This was really great, very timely, I think. And one more question for you here. What are the health benefits for mindfulness?
Oh, That is a whole webinar in itself, but I'll just be brief about it. Because it puts us in the deep breathing puts us in the relaxation state. That's a healthy state of being. So it can lower blood pressure, just overall lower stress. So everything that you think of that is a benefit of lowering your stress, it can impact any medical condition in a positive way, because being in a fight or flight mode only exacerbate any medical condition. It can lower your pain experience if you stay mindful. If we had more time, we could go through an exercise where you could experience that. So I would encourage you, because we don't have too much more time, to really Google the benefits, but it's everything from any kind of medical diagnosis. They've done it about diabetes. It can help people control their blood sugar a little bit, to just your worry thoughts, just living in a more a state of ease, which is really where we're meant to be. Again, I'll leave you with a thought that the opposite of ease is dis-ease. And so maybe you can, look further, or we can have another webinar another time to talk specifically about all those medical.
I think we might need to. Okay, and one final thing, someone is asking about the handouts. They especially liked the pivot slide. Just to let you all know, you will get that in the follow-up email. Sorry if you didn't get it in the one that came out before, but it should be in the follow-up email. You can reach out to your care coordinator, or you can just give a call to friends. If you don't get it, I'll make sure that you do. Thank you again for attending, and thank you so much, Cindy. This was really great.
You're welcome, and thank all of you. I really appreciate it.
All right, take care. Bye-bye.